This is the Experience Trend Lab. We have 5 questions from 5 of our clients, and they are ultimately going to direct the next 40 or so minutes of all of our lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those questions. Those questions are largely about what's been keeping you up at night, what's been annoying you, what is troubling you about the world of virtual events, and obviously this new exciting world of hybrid events that we're entering into. And we will take those questions, and amongst our esteemed panel here of agency and client side gurus, we are going to tackle those questions and hopefully share some useful pearls of wisdom that will enrich your lives.
We are a CEO-led organization working to accelerate the transition to a sustainable world. So we have organized and managed international events, and before the pandemic hit, we were familiar with on-site events, as many of us. We were already using some set of tools, such as an app. We had a CRM, integrated registration tools. We were using professional audiovisuals equipment. And then the pandemic hit, and we had to shift to new ways of working and producing events. And that's when we came to the realization or conclusion, after benchmarking over 70, I think, something like that, different tools, that we needed some support from a professional agency. And that's where we met two heads, so that they could help us to sort of enhance the virtual and digital experience for our members.
Vinod Rana. I am leading the Global Customer Innovation Centers for Belden. And as we are talking about all, the whole digital journey, I mean, Belden is a old company. Let's say more than 100 years we've been making cables. So this digital journey obviously is a very exciting, also but a very new step for us. And how do we engage with customers, moving away from products to solutions, makes it even more challenging. That we don't just sell a cable connector or a switch or something, but but really start selling solutions and be with the customer very near when they're looking for those outcomes that they want to achieve.
Do you believe virtual events have a life after COVID?
To answer simply, yes. I mean, obviously the landscape's changing a lot. We've kind of swung the pendulum massively over towards everything being online and virtual. But naturally, the balance is going to swing back, maybe not all the way to where we were in 2019, early 2020, but we're going to see a bunch of hybrid events, virtual events. Why? I think, the big businesses and blue chip companies, of which we work with a couple of them, have been going through a huge process of, understanding what tools are out there, onboarding them, getting their teams using them. And that's just not going to change back overnight. All that work has got to gone for something, So number one, that investment is just going to stay there. It's there. It's embedded in businesses now. I guess also, we're seeing long-term benefits too. So in events now, you don't have a sort of small select few and we work in the B2B space, right? So I'm going to be sort of a bit heavily slanted in that direction. But unless you're willing to jump on a plane and give up a couple of days of your time, some events might not be that accessible. Being able to join online virtually, I mean, you can see here, we've got Spain, we've got Switzerland, UK, and Germany joining just this panel discussion. So it massively democratizes access, and it means that people can have a much wider reach when they're targeting clients and attendees to events. So that's super cool. And I mean, I guess, Marine, with what you're doing at WBCSD, which is very heavily a sort of event-driven organization, that must be something you're pretty much experiencing too, right? I mean, what's your opinion?
I think no matter what, virtual will remain in some form or the other. And also working for a sustainable organization, I think it will make sense to reduce the frequency of travel. But also on the other hand, there would be a need for people to meet. We can feel, at least from our members and from the feedback we see, that there's a real need for them to be able to meet. But the way we would organize events, if we can still call them in person, will change. And the back to normal won't be back to normal. It's going to be a new way of working, a new way of adapting to the current context. And we don't necessarily exactly know how, but that's why we are working with you.
we are a technology company, and if you look at my guys in my team, the technical guys were never ever comfortable being in front of the camera. It was just a not normal thing. We did quite a lot of meetings with the customers. We didn't have to kind of travel to Spain, for example, to talk to our customers. But this acceptance of that it is okay to be in front of the camera and talk to the customer, I think this is the new reality. And this acceptance is coming far more because we were forced into it. And I think this is already changing the people. And this fear is going away that you can be in a virtual event, be on the camera, and still do a good job, in front of customer. And customers will actually be able to listen to you and understand. I think this new reality is kind of, as a people, we are face-to-face people, but this is really changing the way, and that's why I truly think that it will stay. It will not go away anymore.
Well, needless to say, I agree with that, and I think we very quickly sort of normalised this medium now. I think the platforms are obviously getting more sophisticated, bringing more to the equation to kind of make a richer experience, particularly in the virtual space, and that's going to increasingly be important in hybrid as well. Hybrid seems to be the new events industry buzzword, but how is it going to play out in real life?
We're all about future-proofing events, and so is it more expensive? Well, it's more expensive to not be ready if your event has to move or be canceled, and that's when it gets expensive because you lose all the connections, you lose everything, you lose all of your investment. So hybrid is it's not about being expensive, it's about being smart, and about having a smart investment and creating a duality along the way.
People spend a lot of time thinking about big structures in physical events, or they spend a lot of time thinking about what platform to use, or what 3D program to put their game engine experience in. But fundamentally, it does come back to storytelling. Unless you've got something interesting to say, you're not going to engage people. And I don't think there's any magic technological bullet of, use this tool and you're going to have a great event every single time. It's about going to bare basics and saying, what are we going to say? How are we going to say it? And why do people care?
Just to add a point to Nick's comment, I think for the hybrid events, Dan, I think the critical part will be the quality of the events. If you are able to tell a story, if you go to a SPS Nuremberg, I don't know, SPS Drives, it's one of the biggest automation events which happens in the world. When you are live, although you can do a bad job of presenting your story, but you have this personal touch where you can always bring it back, with the customer. But at live event, like a virtual event, it is difficult. And that's why this storytelling that Nick, you mentioned, it becomes even more important. The quality, how you message, is more important because you are not able to kind of, bring that charm, so to say, in the discussion immediately to the customers. I think the quality, I have been part of many events, and believe me, 80% of them really were bad, I must say. The people just did the event for the sake of events. And there was no story. They just wanted to be virtual. COVID happened. Let's do the webinars, workshops, and everything. And they were not thought out. There was no thought process behind it. I think this is where, whether it will be hybrid or not, will depend on if you have a story or not for each company to kind of, bring it to the market.
That's so true. And we're competing with YouTube and Netflix at the end of the day, and Outlook to a certain extent.
Sustainability within our events program is increasingly important to us. How can event tech contribute to a more sustainable way of working? And being that we have one of the world's bastions of B2B sustainability with us, Marine, I think naturally it might be good for you to start on this from the point of view of how event tech can make a contribution to how you're working. And I know Nick is pretty close to this sort of thing as well, so I reckon he may jump in. So, Marine, I'll start with you. So how are you guys at WBCSD thinking about this?
Thank you, Dan. Well, sustainability is obviously something that is close to our heart, and we, as a leading organization, we sort of need to walk the talk in that space, and more specifically in the event, in the way we organize events. There are two sort of ways which I approach that concern is that linked to the points that we raised before. I think going back to virtual and hybrid is a way of helping reduce the carbon footprint we emit when we organize an event by reducing travel emissions. then when you have to organize an event, because there will be some times when you can't really avoid and you need to organize it in person, then technology will be able to assist you in sort of tracking the data on how much you emit, and sort of can help you to offset those emissions. And then you can also find great tools on tips on how to reduce these. Then another way that technology can help reducing the footprint of events is by using new tools when you produce an event. So to the point that we had raised before is like, if you organize an exhibition fair, instead of producing materials that you would throw away right after the week of the event, you can use screens, you can be smarter in the materials you would use, so that you can reuse them and think about other ways of producing those.
You know, if you're talking about sustainability, how do you make people care properly? You know, it's such a big topic, you know, climate change, sustainable development. And I think it's difficult for people to necessarily connect with it and see how their sort of minute little impact can make a difference. So even in terms of like communications tools, like how can you bring that story to life? You know, is there some kind of a sort of gamified experience where you can sort of put it into context? Like we worked with a company a couple of years back who actually fitted these cylinders onto the exhaust pipes of motorbikes and collected the fumes, condensed it down and made ink out of it. So then we had these murals in this space, and the murals are all painted with this essentially like carbon ink, which was a cool little story and a cool, simple way of sort of showing the impact physically and tangibly, I guess.
Vinod, how does Belden think about sustainability within your events and the customer experiences that you produce?
Well, first of all, I mean, the sustainability part, Dan, in general, if you look at the launch event we did, I mean, we would have had to travel all the speakers to the place, and then they would have traveled back after 2 days. So we didn't have to do that. Yeah. So it's already kind of, helping us a lot to use the time properly, as well as, not kind of, people traveling around for something which you can do virtually. But at the same time, if you, Nick, when we were designing our location as well, lighting system, what kind of systems that you'll use to really enable those customer journeys, but not use extensive things where that it will not be very sustainable in the way that how much energy you're using, for example. So these kind of things I think will definitely change, and is already changing. When one of our managers he asked a question. Remember, Nick? He said, "Well, I hope that you are using LED lighting, because it's less energy that we have to use then." So this it's a very basic thing, but the mentality is changing in this way. I think and the more we promote this hybrid part, I think the more people are getting also, let's say, used to the idea that it's our planet at the end of the day.
No, totally, yeah. And in that space as well, I think what's cool is they've got this central kind of control system. The technology is actually called Pixelab Blocks for anyone who's interested. It's designed for museums, for customer experience centers. Go look at their product, it's really good. So a little shout out to that team. It allows you to control like not just screen content, which is great, but like as Vinod was pointing out, you can like turn lights on and off, you can manage your AC, you can connect any kind of hardware to it, and then from the touch of a button, anywhere in the world actually, because it's a web-based system, you can turn stuff on and off, trigger it, time it, all that sort of thing.
What tools are out there to help sales teams engage with customers in the work from home world beyond Zoom and Teams? So, and they carry on. Any top tips to showcase products and services virtually? So this seems like it's about how do you do more than just hold meetings on Zoom and Teams if you're a salesperson who's working from their home office. How can you enable your salespeople with solutions that can make those meetings feel more tangible, deliver more interesting experiences with your products?
When we started talking about the Customer Innovation Center, we said, okay, it has to be the perfect location, the best location the customer can come in. And we started designing those rooms and, how do we showcase those solutions, but always keeping in mind that the customers will come to us. An engineer is sitting in front of them, either doing a training, webinars, or showcasing our solutions. although we already moved as with two heads when we were started designing the location itself, that we will not have any kind of physical devices as you see, the kind of a demo, talking to each other, robots, doing some things or something. This was gone. So we already knew actually with the digital transformation before COVID came in that it is just robots talking to each other and showing a demo will not work. So we wanted to go virtual. We already wanted to showcase how the solution should look like on a screen when the customer is sitting in the customer innovation center, and also the journey. Like for example, the innovation wall, as Nick knows, is very very close to my heart, and the cube, for example. We also started finding the new ways of what is important to the customer, and not immediately going and talking about a switch. So we decided to kind of showcase a solution in a way that, for example, a transportation, a mass transit, Deutsche Bahn kind of customers, if they come and to a center, to a location, so they are able to already see what they want to expect from the outcomes on the screen. But then again, as we were in the journey, COVID hit, and then the whole, let's say that the idea came into picture. Okay, now what do we do? The customers can't even come actually to our location, and Germany is not the easy country to travel when something hits. The restrictions are very high. So then we started looking at the virtual sites, and you said, look, now we know that okay, we wanted to go digital when we showcase our solution. But now we need to go even digital plus virtual, that really showcase when the person is not even there, the customer coming to us. And that's how we started designing the customer innovation center, the different rooms. It went away from typical classroom kind of rooms to more how many screens we can have, how many inclusiveness that we can give to the customer when they're dialing in virtually and showcasing. The engineer can still work on the switches and the solutions. At the same time, the customer can easily interact with the speaker in the customer innovation center. And this is where for us, as we took this journey with two heads, I think it is becoming even more important that how do we showcase this solution using these tools like Pixie Lab that Nick, you mentioned, and then connect the world actually that, for example, Germany is very famous for automotive manufacturing solutions. But if you go to US, for example, they are very, very advanced in security standards. Energy is one of the key, things that is driven in. So my engineers actually in US are very familiar with kind of energy applications. And here we are very familiar with discrete manufacturing, for example. And now these tools, what we have developed with two heads, for example, we are able to connect those labs and showcase the solutions, irrespective of whether an energy customer can come to us in Germany, but still we are able to showcase the solution from, for example, from a Chicago or a Santa Clara labs, for example. And yeah, this is where I think if you look at the way we will interact and showcase a solution, I personally think that we will be able to reach to far more people at the same time, rather than having 5 customers coming to us and showcasing the result. And this actually, Nick knows more stats than me because they hosted our CIC launch event. We are actually, this was one of the best events Belden did in the recent times. We were able to reach to 61 countries at exactly the same time with the different time zones. People coming from different customers with different experiences.
Yeah, I think it's all about education, and it's all about, taking people on a journey. I think if you present solutions like tech-first solutions, people don't buy into that. But presenting the sort of business case and the actual tangible value you're going to generate out of it, that suddenly speaks to people at that more senior level. So yeah, just take people on the journey and go value first rather than tech first.
It's right. I mean, Nick is right. It is a journey. And the way we manage to convince our board is through an experimental approach. So once we had to cancel all our events at the beginning of 2020, we first had a series of webinars on Zoom. Then we started to benchmark plus 70 different event platforms, and we even bought a license to sort of manage our own our events by our own independently. And then we quickly saw the limitation we had is like we have good skills in house, but we're not broadcaster producers. And then to what Nick was saying earlier is we're shifting to sort of a TV show type of production, and we didn't have the right skills. And then it was more easy because our management had seen the results of what we had produced before. it was easier to convince them. It's like, okay, if you want to deliver a more professional event, then we need to invest.